Hi, welcome. This is part of the Lenten series of a Bible study, and I am excited to start this by going, what is Lent? Of answering that question. And maybe you've heard that question or had that question because you've heard the word Lent quite a bit this season. Maybe you've been in a restaurant and it said Lenten specials. And so, what kind of is this thing called Lent? We may know that people sometimes give things up for it. Maybe we know that it leads up to Easter, but really, kind of what in the world is Lent? And so, I want to start us off by just highlighting a few scriptures, and they are going to be in the comments of Matthew 4 1 through 11. And then the one I'm trying to get this kind of settled. All right, Matthew 4, 1 through 11, Mark 1, 12 through 13, and then Luke 4, 1 through 13. And these are different a little bit. Matthew and Luke are very similar. Mark is super short. And all of these passages have to do with Jesus in the wilderness. And Jesus has been baptized by John the Baptist, and now he is filled with the Spirit of God, and he is driven out. He feels this need. He is into the wilderness. And that metaphor of wilderness is really kind of something interesting for us to contemplate, because the metaphor of wilderness, we can find ourselves in the wilderness many times. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes when we're just struggling in general in life, sometimes when we feel like the burdens are too much or life is chaotic. And all of us have a different way of understanding wilderness, and all of us experience it differently. And so when we're looking at how Jesus experiences it, he goes out and then he is tempted. And the question of, all right, so this thing that is called the devil or Satan, what is that? And to understand that those terms it's the personification of evil. It's like that sense of there are these voices going, hey, you should go do, in a very simple way. It's kind of like having Oreos in the cabinet and you really shouldn't eat the Oreo, but the voice keeps going. The voice in your head goes, it's just one, it's just two, just go get the Oreo. And so here it's a lot more significant because these are real struggles. And it's important to understand that Jesus struggles because we struggle. It's a sense that Jesus is with us through everything, that everything we experience, Jesus gets. And so I'm just going to read one of these just to get a sense of, all right, these 40 days in the wilderness, which is connected to what we understand to be Lent. So Matthew 4, 1 through 11. Then the Spirit led Jesus up into the wilderness so that the devil might tempt him. After Jesus had fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, he was starving. The tempter came to him and said, "Since you're God's son, command these stones to become bread." Jesus replied, "It's written, people won't live only by bread, but by every word spoken by God." After that, the devil brought him into the holy city and stood him at the highest point of the temple. He said to him, "Since you are God's son, throw yourself down, for it is written, I will command my angels concerning you, and they will take you up in their hands so that you won't hit your foot on a stone." Jesus replied, "Again, it's written, don't test the Lord your God." Then the devil brought him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. He said, "I'll give you all these if you bow down and worship me." Jesus responded, "Go away, Satan, because it's written, you will worship the Lord your God and serve only him." The devil left him and the angels came and took care of him. That real sense of, all right, we're going to struggle in numerous areas. We're going to struggle with something very basic as hunger. We're going to struggle with that sense of he's at the highest point of the temple. Just throw yourself down and somebody will come save you. And then this sense of you want it all, like you want all the power, you want all the money, you want all the glory. It's yours. And Jesus responds each time with going, yeah, no, I'm going to stay connected to God, and quotes the scripture that is all about being connected to God. And so when we're thinking about Lent, Lent is a very focused period of time of 40 days, which is connected to Jesus, 40 days, 40 nights of being in the wilderness, of going, all right, how can I focus more intently and be more like a challenge of I want to focus on my relationship with God, and how do I deepen that relationship, and what are the things I need to give up to deepen that relationship, and what are the things that I need to take on, that it's not one or the other, but instead a real understanding of, all right, what is encompassing my life? That word kingdom is all about how God encompasses our life. And so, how is God encompassing your life? And what kind of gets in the way of experiencing that? What gets in the way of experiencing God's love, experiencing God's grace, experiencing peace and love that is of God, experiencing healing, even? Because sometimes the things that we do or the habits that we have can sometimes get in the way of experiencing God's presence. And so Lent is just this period of time that's meant to help us get there. And Lent started very early centuries of the church. The practice happened because they were baptizing on Easter. And so people would take the period of time, the 40 days or so before, to prepare themselves for baptism, to prepare themselves to be more closely associated with God, to be part of the community. And they would take that opportunity, and it gets talked about, especially in the 300s, it kind of gets settled. This is what we're doing. And then there's still debate of, do you take a Sunday off? Because Sunday is supposed to be a mini Easter. And so we probably shouldn't be fasting or giving something up, sacrificing in that sense. And so that's where you get Ash Wednesday, is because they back it up to the Wednesday before the first Sunday of Lent. And you get this sense of, all right, how is this period of time different? And sometimes we need that in life. Sometimes we're so busy with life that we need to give ourselves a challenge. And so this is one of those contained challenges, 40 days. Let's see what can happen. How can we deepen our relationship with God? And sometimes people ask, well, I don't remember this in the Protestant or the Presbyterian. When did this start to happen? And it really comes about because of Vatican II, which is between 1962 and 1965. And Vatican II kind of highlights some of these things. And so the Protestants go, oh, well, that sounds like a kind of a good practice, but it's not as regimented in, say, like the Presbyterian Church as it is in other places like the Catholic Church. And so I challenge you to just take this as a period of time of going, all right, is there something I need to stop doing? Is there something I need to start doing that can really be helpful to my relationship with God? Is there something that's getting in the way of experiencing peace, love, joy, healing, encouragement that I need to focus on something a little bit differently this time of year? And my hope is that you will take this time, whether this was just informational or it's actually helpful, and you're like, I think I'm ready to do such a challenge, that it's helpful in whatever ways so that you may know more of God's love in your life. Because times can be chaotic, and there can be a whole lot of unknown and uncertainty. And we can feel like life is heavy and burdensome right now. And so to be able to go, I'm going to instead focus upon God's love for at least a few minutes. I'm going to at least focus on God's peace instead of all of the chaos that's going. I'm going to focus on God's healing and God's help. Maybe some of the practices that we decide to do have more with prayer. Maybe we decide to practice, you know what, I'm going to help someone every single day in some way. Whatever it is, may this be a time of deepening your relationship with God, of experiencing God's presence in your life, which can be absolutely transformative. May you be blessed. Have a wonderful evening.